Are you truly, deeply self-aware? Most people define themselves by their name, their body, their job, a superficial shell. But what if I told you that's just a facade, a socially constructed persona, a learned behavior? What if I showed you that uncovering your authentic self could revolutionize your life, your finances, relationships, purpose, in a mere 5 minutes? It sounds unbelievable, I know, but give me 5 minutes and I'll prove it. Ever notice the pervasive discontent in society? People feel an existential void, a missing piece without understanding its source, and the kicker: they search for answers outside themselves. They spend lifetimes chasing magic bullets, cryptic solutions, external gurus, when the answer has always been within, in their core being. I see it constantly. People attending seminars, buying self-help books, desperately seeking external fixes for internal struggles, knocking on the wrong door. Nothing changes until you change. I remember a man, Ray Stanford, I met during a rough patch. He said, if you don't like your results, you need to change yourself. They're a reflection of who you are. Something shifted within me then, not a sudden transformation, but a deep, genuine realignment. And it might resonate with you too. Does this sound familiar? You work tirelessly, give your all, yet the same patterns repeat. The same debts, the same frustrations, the same feeling of stagnation despite your efforts. That's because you're trying to fix the symptom without addressing the root cause. You're trying to change the world without changing your center, yourself. When Ray said that, I was adrift, directionless. Without a college degree, I was stuck in dead-end jobs, changing oil, mopping floors, just surviving. But his words hit me like a lightning bolt. You need to discover who you are. And I realized I didn't know. That's the crux of it. Ask someone, who are you? And you'll get a name, age, address, job title, labels, a description imposed by the world, not the essence of the person. You say, my body, my hand, my name, but who is this this I that possesses the body, the name, the identity? This is where most people get lost, so focused on the external they forget the internal. They react to the world. A criticism, bad news, a negative bank balance deeply affects their mood. Why? Because they haven't built a solid sense of self. They react instead of living fully, merely existing. 95% of people live on autopilot, mimicking behaviors and beliefs. They follow an invisible path leading to frustration and unhappiness. If you grew up believing success is only for the lucky, money is scarce, you need to conform to be accepted, that's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to reprogram that ingrained thinking. Your environment shaped your self-perception, but it doesn't define who you truly are. Your essence transcends criticism, setbacks, failures, difficult relationships. Your authentic identity waits to be revealed, emerging when you stop repeating patterns and start investigating yourself, your mind, your thoughts, how you control your reality, how to break free from autopilot. I'm not talking mysticism, but neuroscience. Stanford University research shows over 90% of behavior is unconscious, repetitive, conditioned. You live the life you've been conditioned to live until you choose to break free. You don't need to change everything at once. Start by asking, who am I really and who do I want to be? Because understanding that you are not your name, your body, your past sets you free, allowing you to reinvent, rebuild, and redefine your destiny. But it takes courage. Courage to look inward, shed the programming, and ask, what if I am so much more? I asked that question, and it changed everything for me. Maybe it's your turn. The biggest prison doesn't have bars. It's the way you've been conditioned to think. People are trapped in a system shaping their decisions from birth, silently, invisibly. They go with the flow, never questioning, never imagining escaping the cycle. School, family, society taught us rules, conformity, obedience, but not critical thinking, not questioning. That's why most people live a life they didn't choose, a life of unhappiness and mediocrity. Notice how many people work for 40 years and still have little money. Not because they don't work hard, but because they follow a model. Study, get a job, obey, retire, and accept what comes. An outdated model most blindly follow. The most alarming statistic? Over 95% of people live their entire lives without realizing their dreams. They're on autopilot, copying others. They dress, think, spend like everyone else, and face the same problems. They never stop to consider if their path is right for them. And the most intriguing part, if you ask why they do what they do, the answer is because everyone else does. But when did following the crowd guarantee success? The majority are in debt, unhappy, feeling like they're wasting their lives. Why stay on the same path? I was there. I didn't come from privilege. I was stuck in meaningless jobs that barely paid the bills and drained my energy. But something happened. I read Think and Grow Rich. It asked a fundamental question. What if everything I was taught was wrong? I started studying not the external world, but my own thinking, my belief system. We're conditioned from childhood. Our minds are programmed subconsciously by others, without our awareness. You learned your native language effortlessly. Imagine if 10 languages surrounded you, you'd learn them all because your mind was open. But as we grow, that openness closes. We believe we can't learn more, change. We have limits. Those limits aren't real. They're learned, and that's where the environment becomes dangerous. Even when awakening to a new reality, the environment tries to pull you back to mediocrity. People, even those who love you, tell you you're dreaming too big. It's unrealistic. You need to be practical. But keeping your feet on the ground never made anyone fly. You need to question everything. Ask, do the people advising me have the life I want? Because if they don't, why listen to them? It takes courage to be different, to think for yourself. It starts with a simple act: stopping copying. Most people get a job, observe colleagues, and imitate without questioning the method's efficiency. Real change happens when you ask, is there a better way? I was once told asking too many questions was rebellious. Now I see it was freedom. Don't accept the idea that thinking differently is wrong. Edison, Marconi, Steve Jobs, Oprah, Walt Disney. They all dared to imagine what no one else saw. They made a difference in the world. Perhaps your biggest mistake is trying to fit into a mold not made for you. How many times have you had a brilliant idea and given up because they said it was too hard? How many times have you been excited by something new and been sucked back into mediocrity? Your mind can create a new world, but it needs to be freed from old programming. This happens when you stop consuming what everyone consumes, thinking like everyone thinks. Start consciously choosing what enters your mind. Science proves this. Yale University showed people exposed to negative environments develop more stress, insecurity, and illness. The opposite is also true. Ideas of growth, possibility, freedom activate creativity, courage, and decision-making. This isn't motivation, it's neuroscience. The world doesn't change until you change from the inside out. Change begins when you decide to stop repeating behaviors that lead to unhappiness. Will you continue living the life others designed for you, or will you start designing your own? That's the difference between living and merely existing. Have you noticed how some people shrink themselves? They avoid eye contact, speak tentatively, walk with their heads down, as if apologizing for existing. They do this because they don't feel worthy, capable, deserving. The reason isn't what they have or lack, but how they see themselves, the image they carry in their minds, and that image is deciding their entire life. It all begins with self-image. The concept of self-image was developed by a plastic surgeon named Maxwell Maltz. He noticed that when he operated on patients' faces, he often changed their behavior. A shy person became extroverted, but sometimes the behavior remained the same. Why? Because despite the external change, the internal image remained the same. Do you understand the power of this? How you see yourself influences every choice, leads you to accept less than you deserve, to sabotage opportunities, to give up before you even try. It's not the world that prevents you from moving forward. It's the image you carry of yourself. I've seen this happen many times. In seminars, I'd observe people who could barely look me in the eye. They carried the weight of failure, rejection, unresolved experiences. But when they changed how they saw themselves, something incredible happened. Their posture changed, their gaze, their tone of voice. Not because the world changed, but because they changed from within, from their beliefs and perceptions. Have you experienced this? Been faced with an opportunity and frozen? Felt you weren't enough, prepared, good enough? Those voices aren't yours. They were implanted in your mind, perhaps by parents, teachers, colleagues, but you don't have to keep listening to them. Self-image isn't fixed. It can and should be rebuilt, recreated, reimagined. Start like this. Close your eyes and see yourself as you'd like to be. Not physical appearance, but your behavior, how you speak, act. Imagine yourself calm, confident, resolute, with a sparkle in your eye. See yourself taking control of your life. It may seem silly, but what seems fantasy today can be reality tomorrow. I remember a woman in a training session. She was an insurance salesperson struggling with sales. During the training, she said, "I always feel like an intruder, like I'm bothering people." We discovered she grew up hearing she was inconvenient, talked too much, asked too much from life. She'd carried that guilt for decades. I asked her to write a new self-image, something like, "I'm a competent professional who offers real value to people. I'm confident in what I sell, and it impacts lives positively." She hesitated, but I insisted, "Read this every day aloud, feel as if it's already true." 3 weeks later, she emailed me. She'd closed the biggest deal of her career. She said, "I finally felt deserving." That's the crucial point. You attract what you believe you deserve. Want to earn more money, build a thriving business, a healthy relationship, respect? It all starts with the image you project internally. If you see yourself as small, insignificant, the world will treat you as such. But when you see yourself as valuable, worthy, the world responds according to your beliefs. It's not magic, it's perception. People perceive what you transmit, and that reflects what you feel inside, your beliefs. Changing your self-image is the first step to changing everything in your life. You don't need to wait for your self-esteem to improve to act. It's the opposite. Act as if you already have this new image, and gradually your mind will begin to believe. Your nervous system will accept, and reality will follow. You can use this now. Relax, close your eyes. Imagine yourself living the life you desire, walking with purpose, speaking with conviction, smiling with lightness and serenity. This isn't about deceiving yourself, but about revealing what has always been there, buried under criticism and fear. Then write it down. Describe this version of yourself as if it already exists. I am calm, focused, prosperous, confident, positive, and full of energy. Read this every day, even when it seems ridiculous, because your brain learns through repetition. The more you repeat an image, the more it becomes your identity. I do this to this day, not out of insecurity, but because I never stopped growing and improving. The question is, how have you been seeing yourself? Because as long as your self-image doesn't change, your life will continue mirroring exactly what you believe you deserve. Most people believe their emotions are an inevitable response to what happens around them, as if they are hostages to circumstances, as if they are in the back seat of a car someone else is driving. But what if I told you that's not true? That your emotions are under your control, and learning to manage them can completely transform your life. I'm not saying you'll stop feeling emotions. Feeling is part of the human experience. The problem is that we've been taught to react to feelings, not to understand them, to manage them. Most people wake up well, but a negative message, bad news, an unexpected event, and boom, the day goes downhill. They oscillate as if their mood is decided by external factors, by circumstances. But the reality is different. What controls your emotions is not what happens to you. It's the interpretation you give to what happens. It all starts with thought. Thought generates a feeling, and feeling generates an action. This cycle happens all the time. If you don't like the emotions you feel, maybe it's time to pay attention to what you're thinking. I learned this firsthand. There was a time when I was making a lot of money, but I was irritable, stressed, anxious. I thought that when the money arrived, my problems would disappear, but they intensified. I realized it's not what I have that determines how I feel. It's what I think about what I have, and more deeply, it's what I think about myself. How you interpret the world shapes your emotional experience. Imagine someone who loses their job. One person thinks, "This proves I'm a failure." Another thinks, "This is the chance I needed to finally do something I love." Same situation, different emotions. Why? Because the meaning each gave to the event was different. Can you see the power you have in your hands? If you feel down, anxious, listless, it's a sign that your thoughts are heading in the wrong direction. And the good news is that you can change that, not at once, but with training, decision, awareness, and persistence. Start by paying attention to what you consume. Everything that enters your mind influences what you feel. Negative news, toxic conversations, heavy environments contaminate your mind and energy. Good reading, good audio, good company elevate your mood and well-being. I remember a habit that transformed my routine. I used to start the day reading the newspaper, and the headlines were always about tragedy, crisis, corruption. This shaped my perception of the world. I'd wake up well, but I'd finish my coffee already feeling drained. So I decided to change. I started reading a passage from Think and Grow Rich, or The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, something that would strengthen me, inspire me. My mood changed, my disposition changed, my day changed. Not because the world changed, but because I stopped feeding my mind with what weakened me. And it's not just me. Science has proven this. Studies from the University of California show that people who cultivate positive thoughts have lower levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Thinking well is good, biologically speaking, but maybe you're wondering, how do I control my thoughts if they come out of nowhere? And here's one of the most misunderstood secrets. You don't need to stop thoughts from arising. You need to decide which ones you'll engage with, which ones you'll identify with. Consider your thoughts as visitors at your door. You can't stop them from arriving. However, you decide which ones you will welcome. When a negative thought arises, and it will, examine it and ask, does this bring me closer to my goal? If the answer is no, let it go. Yes, it takes practice. You've been conditioned to surrender to any idea that appears. But the time has come to learn the opposite, to take control of your mind. There's a simple exercise I teach in my workshops. In challenging situations, stop, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, how would a more evolved version of me react to this? Perhaps with serenity, perhaps with inventiveness, perhaps with silence. Whatever it is, the answer lies within you. Just access it. The truth is, you weren't born to react. You were born to create your own reality. Your emotions are your thermometer. If something constantly leaves you discouraged, it indicates a misalignment with your true essence. You no longer need to live at the mercy of circumstances. You choose. You can change the focus. You can modify your internal narrative. You can decide what to think. By deciding what to think, you change what you feel. By changing what you feel, you transform what you do. And that changes everything. So, the next time something tries to steal your peace, remember, the emotion only enters if you open the door, and the key to that door has always been in your hands. People live as if the solution is always one step away. They believe it's in a new course, job, city, relationship. They relentlessly search outside for what, ironically, has always been inside. This exhaustive search exhausts them. They accumulate knowledge, data, theories, but remain empty. It's like chasing the wind. What they need isn't more things. It's more self-knowledge, more self-compassion and acceptance. Have you noticed how difficult it is for many to be alone in silence? Because in silence, the truth emerges, and the truth that emerges is disconcerting. They don't know themselves. And that's where everything changes. Realizing that transformation doesn't lie in something new to conquer, but in something old to rediscover. Yourself, your essence. True knowledge is internal. It's not about acquiring, but about awakening. And awakening requires courage. Facing yourself requires more strength than facing the world. It requires you to remove all the masks, the false identities, the protections you've built, and ask honestly, who am I really? I lived this. When I started my journey, all I wanted was money. I believed that with enough, my problems would disappear. When the money arrived, and it arrived quickly, I realized I was more lost than before. I had money, but no peace. I had apparent success, but no direction. That's when I understood. It's not about what you have, it's about who you are, your values and your principles. This discovery doesn't require you to go to a monastery in the Himalayas or abandon everything and isolate yourself. It only requires you to stop, to breathe, to observe, and begin to investigate your thoughts, because they are windows to your deepest truth. Have you ever wondered where your thoughts come from? Observed how many times they aren't yours? They are echoes of childhood, society, the people around you. They are old programs that keep running even without meaning, and you believe them. You act on them. You live a life that isn't yours, that doesn't represent you. But when you investigate, something magical happens. You realize there's a gap between stimulus and response, a space where you choose, where you create, where you are. And in that space lies freedom, autonomy, the power of choice. The mind has a physical aspect, the brain, and a non-physical aspect, consciousness. It's this consciousness that you need to access. It connects you to your maximum potential. And that's why great transformations begin from the inside out. Because within resides the source, the essence of your strength and your creative potential. Imagine you are a projector. The world you see is the screen, and everything you project comes from within. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your internal images. If the internal image is blurry, distorted, limited, it doesn't matter what happens outside. The projection will always be imperfect. But if you clean the lens, adjust the focus, choose a new image, the world begins to change. Because the world is a reflection of your beliefs and thoughts. Want more love? Start loving yourself more. Want more prosperity? Start seeing the value in who you are. Want more opportunities? Start seeing yourself as someone prepared for them, someone who values and respects themselves. It all starts with your inner vision. It all starts with the decision to stop searching and start remembering. Remembering that you already have everything, that the flame of creation is within you, waiting to be ignited. You already possess the answers you seek. Stop spinning your wheels, chasing mirages of external solutions. Look inward, not to hide, but to discover the incredible map already within you. A roadmap to your own potential, a path illuminated by the quiet wisdom of your soul. This inner connection grants an unshakable certainty, far surpassing any fleeting external validation, wealth, or popularity. It's the self-assuredness of someone who's found themselves, a freedom that comes from embracing your true self. The real question isn't, what do you want, but who are you truly when no one's watching? Unraveling that enigma has the power to change everything. Why, with so much untapped potential, do so many people underachieve? It boils down to one almost imperceptible yet crucial element: the absence of a clear decision. Most people wait, hesitate, analyze, but they don't commit. This silent indecision breeds deferred dreams, missed opportunities, and mediocre lives. Until you make a resolute choice, nothing changes. I see it in countless faces, in the eyes I meet on the street, a profound uncertainty. People desire change. They claim they do, yet they live as if time were infinite, as if life endlessly waits for the courage they haven't yet found. But time waits for no one. The universe aligns itself with those who choose. Want to change your life's trajectory? Really want it? Then stop waiting for everything to be perfect, because it never will be. Many wait for the feeling of readiness, but preparation doesn't precede the decision. It follows it. You decide first, and that decision starts shaping who you'll become. I remember the moment I made my first big decision vividly. I was a firefighter in Toronto, a stable, secure job. But there was an inner fire, a restlessness, a voice whispering, "This isn't your path." Then I read Think and Grow Rich. It hit me like a silent explosion. For the first time I understood it wasn't the world that needed to change, it was me. And that day, I chose. I quit my job, without guarantees, without safety nets, and started my first business, a cleaning company. Within a year, I made over $100,000. It wasn't luck, it was decision. When you truly decide, the universe responds. People appear, opportunities emerge, ideas flow. It all starts when you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What do I lose if I don't try?" How many times has doubt held you back? How many doors have you left unopened out of fear of the unknown? How many times have you preferred the discomfort of the familiar to the possibility of something extraordinary? Indecision breeds stagnation, and stagnation breeds suffering. Indecisive people get trapped in vicious cycles, jobs they hate, empty relationships, uninspired routines, and despite their unhappiness, they remain waiting for the perfect moment. But that perfect moment never arrives, because the right moment is when you decide. A Columbia University study revealed that more choices often lead to decision paralysis. In a world overflowing with possibilities, the courage to choose has become a significant advantage. Deciding is an act of power, and power isn't begged for, it's claimed. Ready for a challenge? Grab a notebook and write down 3 decisions you've been putting off, 3 actions you know you need to take but have been avoiding. Then choose just one and act on it in the next 24 hours. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because when you start deciding, you start truly living. Yes, you might stumble, you might fall, but you'll be moving, growing in command of your own narrative, and that feeling is priceless. The feeling of looking in the mirror and knowing, I chose to be here. Life doesn't change through mere wishing, it changes through decision. If you decide today, right now, that you won't live half a life anymore, something within you will awaken. A clarity, an energy, a sense of purpose, unavailable while you remain undecided. So I ask you with complete sincerity, what's the decision you should have already made? That decision might be the bridge between the life you're living and the life you've always dreamed of. You don't need to become someone new. You need to remember who you truly are. The strength, the clarity, the capability. It's all already within you. The only obstacle between you and the life you desire is the extent to which you're willing to take control of your mind, your emotions, and your decisions. And now that this awareness has begun to bloom within you, are you ready to climb another rung on this transformative journey? The next video is already available. Click it, because there you'll take another step, a decisive step, towards becoming a little better than you are now. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next video.